Hi, welcome to Humanities 202 Non-Western Culture. I'm Dr. Hodges, and first thing we need to do is why are we not in person? Well, short answer is COVID. I have a medical condition called psoriatic arthritis. You can see some of my fingers don't bend, which is caused by my immune system attacking my joints. The meds I take to treat it, to stop being crippled, work by suppressing my immune system. Side effect, I'm highly susceptible to any infectious disease that happens to be going around, like COVID-19. And I like living. So we're going to do this course online. Doing all my courses online. Hopefully you've taken a look at the syllabus. If not, you'll need to do that. And I also will have a video to help you navigate the Canvas page. It'll be in lesson 1.1. It will also be on the very first page at the very top, where it says start here. The course description, Humanities 202, Non-Western Culture, basically deals with Asia, specifically India, China, Japan, and the Middle East. Now, why should you care about those cultures? After all, they're not, in all likelihood, where your ancestors come from. Well, part of my answer to that is take a look at me. Do I look like my ancestors come from India, China, Japan, or the Middle East? The reason's really quite simple. The biggest country in the world in terms of population, number of people, is China. Roughly 25% of the world's people live in China. Second largest is India, roughly 20%. By about the middle of this century, those numbers will turn around because China has had a one-child policy for many years. Couples are only allowed one child. I think that's beginning to change, but it's been a policy to try to keep their population within what they can feed. You have to get a government permit to have a child. If you luck out and have twins, so be it. But you're only allowed one pregnancy. If it results in twins, you're the fortunate one. So they're trying to limit population growth because all that many people are squeezed into a land area about the same size as the United States. But the point is this, just those two countries alone, 45% of the world's people. By the time you start including cultures based on India and China, Southeast Asia, Korea, you're talking about the majority of the world's people. Now, you may think that the majority of the people in the world look like me. Not true. Okay. Don't you think you ought to know something about the cultures that involve most of the world's people? Now, my argument for Japan is a little different. Japan is not a large country population-wise, but it is a very influential country economically. If you own anything with a brand name like Honda, Toyota, Nissan, drawing a blank, senior moment, Konica, Minolta. Those are all Japanese companies. Middle East. How many of you know somebody who served a tour of duty in Iraq or Afghanistan? I know several. The fact of the matter is that whether we like it or not, all of us are going to be dealing with people from other parts of the world. I think it's to your advantage to know something about where they're coming from culturally. That's what the course is about. I mean, you can read the educational gobbledygook on the syllabus, the description, the objective, the learning outcomes. But that's the reality. This is not a course that's designed to teach you how to do something you're going to do in your career. What I call a VOTEC course. And there's a tendency, even in higher education, to think really in VOTEC terms. I think that's a mistake. This course aims at the traditional aim of a liberal arts education, and that is to stretch your mind, to expose you to perspectives on the world that are different from what you've grown up with, from what I've grown up with. Because we're all going to be dealing with people of different backgrounds. And I think it gives you an advantage if you have the ability, and this is something we're going to try to develop in this course, is develop the ability to set your own perspectives aside as much as that's possible to do and understand somebody else's perspective. I also, by the way, think it'll make you a better person. I mean, you may think that everybody has always thought about things pretty much the same way that you do. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I like to illustrate that based on actually this course. We used to team teach this course. I taught a unit based about the philosophies and religions of Asia because that's my background. Is in religious studies and philosophy. And then a colleague of mine, Dr. Jim Kim, did a unit on history and literature because his background is history. And we had a man from called Mr. Yu, who was a graduate student over at Tech, who was from mainland China, People's Republic. And I always look forward to when he was teaching, and he put up a list of ingredients for a dish called Kailin Tao Te on the old-fashioned overhead that we used at that time. So I've been at Grambling since 1991. And I like to watch the students' response when they saw that the main ingredient in Kailin Tao Te is a small dog. Now, I'm guessing that some of you react to the idea of eating dog. Why? Well, because in our society, we don't eat dogs. We keep dogs as pets. I have a dog as a pet. Well, think for a minute about the role that pets play in a family. And a clue is how people talk to their pets and about themselves in relationship to their pets. Oh, whose baby is it? It's a good girl. Now, to what other than a dog or a cat, do we speak in that tone of voice? A child, a baby. Pets function as essentially substitute children. Well, every society has a taboo against eating one's children, for obvious reasons. No society that did that would last very long. Well, what we do is, because animals like dogs and cats are kept as pets, we subconsciously extend that taboo to include not eating those animals. Well, in parts of East Asia, dogs and cats are raised the way that chickens and cows are raised here, for food. My late father-in-law used to raise cattle, and Dad had no trouble reaching into the freezer, pulling out a package of steaks, telling you what cow they came from, and her life history, who her mother had been, what calves she had had, and he could tell you all that and then cook up those steaks. And I had no trouble listening to all that and then helping him eat them. In fact, when my wife and I were dating, Dad's steaks and Mom's biscuits were the secret weapons that Laverne used to reel me in. Ladies, what you've heard about the way to a man's heart, it's true. By contrast, so people in China, where dogs and cats are raised as food animals, think no more about eating dog or cat than most of us think about eating chicken or beef. By contrast, in India, where, as we'll see in Module 2 on Hinduism, the cow is a sacred animal, people in India react to the idea of eating beef with the same horror that many of you reacted to the idea of eating dog. Now, what's the point of that? It all depends on where you grow up. We are all products of the communities in which we are raised. Those communities do a lot to shape our beliefs, our attitudes, our values. And so, in this course, you're going to be exposed to different ways of looking at the world, different beliefs, different values. We're going to look at the religions, the philosophies, a little bit of the history, a little bit of the art, more of the literature of India, China, Japan, and the Middle East. And what we're always going to be looking at is, what do these things tell us about how people in those cultures look and have looked at themselves, one another, and the world around them. I'm going to ask you, as we approach other religions, to do it in a very specific way. Don't get into, is this religion true or not? The fact is, there's no neutral basis to make those decisions. What I want you to do instead is simply try to understand what each religion teaches, how it guides people in understanding the world. See, when you start in on the religion textbook, one of the first things we're going to talk about is, what is religion? And religion, I think, is a way of understanding the world. And every religion does two things. It helps people to understand their experiences of life in the world, and it guides us in responding to those experiences. How do I cope, for example, with the inevitable death of my parents? Right? Rule number one of life is that nobody gets out of this world alive. Okay. How do I deal with that? Well, religion provides answers. Each religion has its own answers. Okay. But the point is that religion helps us to deal with the life experiences that are a part of all humanity. And so I want you just to try to set aside for a moment questions about what's true or not, and simply try to understand what each religion teaches about life and the world. You might even learn something that you can incorporate into your own life without necessarily adopting all of what a religion teaches. I'm asking you to keep an open mind, basically. Now, what you're probably more interested in is what's expected in the course. Well, first thing is there are 2 textbooks. This one, A Treasury of Asian Literature, by John Yohannan. We'll be using this from time to time. We're not going to be reading the whole thing, but parts of it. Literature selections from Asia. This book is fairly cheap. You can get a new copy for about $20, used copies almost anywhere on the internet, $5 to $10. Okay. But the point is, you will need to have this book. The other book is Paths to the Divine, written by some guy named Hodges. Now, you might notice that the author's name is the same as your professor's name. That's not a coincidence. This is a textbook on world religions. You're going to be reading the entire thing except for one chapter, and that's the chapter on Christianity. Because Christianity is something we deal with in my Western culture class, not non-Western culture. But I couldn't very well write a textbook on world religions and not talk about the world's largest religion. That makes no sense. Now, I've given you a link to the publisher, and that's cheaper to buy it from them than it is at the bookstore. You can also, at a place called Vital Source, has an ebook version if you want to go that route. But now here's the deal. Internet-only courses put a greater emphasis on students reading than traditional face-to-face courses. Okay? Even in a face-to-face course, I typically say, textbooks can be expensive, but it's cheaper than taking the course over again. Okay? You get the point? Without having the textbooks, your chances of successfully exiting this course are essentially zero. Now, if you feel like you have the time and money to spend taking a course over again, be my guest. I never felt like I had time or money to spend that way. And, my parents helped pay my way through college. I do not know what my dad would have done if I'd brought D's and F's home. I didn't want to find out. My dad was a drill sergeant in the Army during World War II. I'm fairly certain it would have hurt. My best guess is that we would have had to go to the local hospital and have his foot surgically removed from my rear end. Okay. So, it is absolutely essential that you obtain those 2 textbooks. Rent them, buy them, get them where you want to. I don't care. But you got to have them, because you're going to need to do the readings. Without doing the readings, you will not be successful. The class discussions, which are, of course, going to be online, number one criteria that I'm going to use in grading those is, can I see from your responses where you have read the assignments? If I cannot see that, your response is going to earn 0 points. Okay, you will have very little chance on the quizzes and the tests online. Reading something off of Wikipedia is not going to be an adequate substitute. The quizzes and tests are based on the assigned readings from these 2 textbooks. Okay, so they're absolutely essential. Now, if you look at the course content and assignment due dates, you'll see the course is divided into a series of modules. And we start off, Module 1 is an introduction and the basics of religion and the basic religions. The readings for that are in the religion book, chapters 1 and 2. And then we'll go into Hinduism, some of the literature of Hindu India. That's where we'll start into the Treasury of Asian Literature book, and so on. I mean, the course is designed that you start at the top with Module 1. Module 1, when you get into Canvas more, you'll see it has 3 lessons in it, and you go lesson 1.1, lesson 1.2, lesson 1.3, and then you move on to Module 2. You start at the top and work your way down to the bottom. The schedule is based on generally 2 lessons per week. There are a couple of exceptions to that. The first week I'm asking you to do 3, but one of those lessons covers simply the syllabus. And at the very end, we need to do 3 in the last week in order to finish up on time. But there is also a place right before midterm where I only have 1 lesson assigned that week, and only 1, I believe, the week of the midterm. So if you can manage to get 2 done there, then it would be 2 a week. Rule of thumb in a traditional face-to-face course is that you should expect to spend 2 to 3 hours per week for every hour that you spend in class. Now, we don't have class sessions as such for an online class, but I used that framework. 3-hour class would mean 3 hours in the class plus 6 to 9 hours outside of class for 9 to 12 hours spent each week on that course. And I think that that what I've put together for you fits that module nicely. You're going to be reading the textbooks. I've got some videos. Some are like this that I will make. Others are things that I have found on YouTube or other places that I'll ask you to look at and reflect. Often I'm going to ask you to connect what you see in the video with what you read in the book, or I'm going to ask you about the to respond to things that are in the readings. Those discussions kind of take the place of classroom discussions. It is important that you need to keep up. If you could do a semester's worth of work in 2 weeks, the semester would only need to last 2 weeks. Okay, so don't plan on playing around all semester and then trying to pull it out at the end. Like I said, I've been at Grambling since 1991. I've seen a few things. Okay, that's not going to work. You do need to be able to access internet, high-speed internet, because of videos like this one. You do need to be able to read PDF documents as well as Microsoft Word documents, and you may need to be able to edit Microsoft Word documents. I don't care what device you use, but be aware cell phones may or may not be adequate. I'm the last dinosaur. I don't have a cell phone. I know they generally can read PDFs. I don't know about Word documents. Of course, they can work with videos, but you're going to eat up your data plan that way. Canvas doesn't always play nice with cell phones on quizzes. I've had a number of students tell me they took the quiz on their cell phone, but Canvas didn't record the score. And if Canvas doesn't record the score, I don't have any way of seeing what answers you submitted because Canvas didn't take it. So you need to have access to a device. Check your grades on Canvas and make sure your quiz scores went through. Because if they don't, I can't fix it. Your grade is based on 2 exams that you'll take online. The exams, you will have 1 attempt and 1 attempt only. Midterm is 150 points. The final exam, 200 points. The reading test will total 300, online discussions 250, so the total number of points available is 900 points. And the grading system is very simple. A point is a point is a point, no matter where you earned it. It's based on total points. At the end of the semester, I add up all your points. If you have at least 810 points, 90% or higher, you make an A. If you are in the 80% range, 720 to 809 points, you make a B. You need at least 630 points, 70% to make a C, and at least 60% or 540 points to make a D. If you need to get a message to me, I do not have conference hours as such because I am working from home. Send me a message in Canvas or an email, hodgesdh@graham.edu. I check my email at least once a day, generally in the morning on weekdays. If we need to meet, we can either set up like a Zoom meeting, or we can set up a time for me to meet with you in my office on campus. If we do that, I'll be wearing a mask, and I'm going to ask you to wear a mask. The reading quizzes on Canvas, I'll give you up to 5 attempts. I'll take the highest grade. You can see on your syllabus the disability services, the statement about plagiarism. The other way, besides not showing me that you've read the assignment, to get a 0 on a discussion is to plagiarize something off the internet. Okay? That doesn't show me that you've learned anything. A chimpanzee can do that. I want to see your work. The last thing I want to point out to you in the syllabus is the last block, how to read your textbooks and make an A in non-Western culture. Pay attention to that. This is actually study skills that will help you in any course. Though it's specifically focused on what we do in this course. I think much of this would apply to any course. Okay, I'll have a video for you on how to navigate Canvas. That'll be a separate video. Your first lesson is going to deal with